The Grassy Island Creek?
Absolutely.
Well, if you were at the Grassy Island Creek like I was, when I was this tall, you'd know that it runs 365 days a year. But I don't say that disrespectfully. That creek runs 365 days a year. The other thing I wanted to ask you is that, are you representing Trout Unlimited or yourself? Have you been condoned by Trout Unlimited to come and speak here?
Trout Unlimited's position is on the state level and on the local level, and that was addressed to Attorney Miles. They do not oppose the facility. I'm speaking for myself.
Okay, thank you.
And saying that I think it's a worthwhile proposition.
Thank you. Mr. McGurl, you have also been a staunch supporter of the river for many years. Are you speaking on behalf of yourself or the Lackawanna Recorder Association?
I'm speaking for myself.
Okay, thank you. Since 1974, power plants have been known to affect property values. I hope I'm not going to steal somebody else's thunder, but just reading makes a lot of sense. A power plant affects property values because people consider it a nuisance and require compensation for coping with its undesirable effects. People are not going to want to live here. People have already come to the town and seen no power plant signs, asked what that was, and didn't even get out of the car. A relative of mine who lived, born and raised in Jessup, moved to Harrisburg, called a realtor to come back. The person said, "Sir, where are you from? Are you familiar with this area?" "Yes, I was born and raised in Jessup." The realtor said, "Don't consider anything in the valley. Between the landfill expansion and between the proposed power plant, there's many concerns." That's what reduces our property values. These studies were done over 92 power plant sites in the country. You know, the other thing with power plants in the study that's not addressed in the handout is they tend to change neighborhoods. People who are sensitive to environmental issues move away. Home ownership tends to go down. There's a lot of renters, so these power plants do change neighborhoods over the long term. There's also an issue that I have with the site as far as it being on the old abandoned Jessup Winton Municipal landfill. There was borehole drilling done there. Nobody knows how or why. There's no permits. But I wanted to ask on the record, what was actually drilled for? Was it drilled for contaminants, or was it drilled to see if it was a landfill? That would be my first question.
So Tom, to answer your question, there, we did a series of bore drillings last June that were intended to understand the subsurface conditions so that we could plan for foundation design. It's a normal part of the business. In that effort, we did find some boreholes that had waste material in them. And I think there were 3 out of 19, something like that. And since then, we've done some subsequent investigation on the site that involves non-intrusive. I think there were 4 different tests. The company Geosciences did the original bores, and then I'm trying to remember the name of the other company. I'll get it for you. But there's another company, Enviroscience, I think is the name of the firm. They did magnetic imaging test, a resistivity test, and 2 other tests to try to get an understanding of what might be out there. From our understanding from those tests, we have a pretty good understanding of what area on the site might have been affected by the dump. And we're putting together a waste management plan that we've provided to the DEP, how to deal with that in our construction process.
Thank you. Have you found any type of contaminants? Have you tested for contaminants? PCBs or lead, asbestos?
Bill comment.
So as Dan said, the work that was done was for geotechnical purposes to determine structural aspects of the site. And then because of some of the information that was found in the borings, there was electromagnetic surveys done to try to determine what anomalies are out there that might define where the waste is. The records that we obtained from DEP indicated this was a dump from the town. There were records that indicated that the town was using it as a municipal dump with municipal garbage. In talking with the DEP, they said that it would be important for us to make sure that anything we encounter, because they had looked at the site in the past, in the 70s, that for their purposes, these are common places where old coal mining was done, were used for municipal dumping. And we said, okay, we need to make sure that this is done correctly. And they said, well, put together a waste management plan, and we'll work with you to make sure that whatever you encounter, you properly manage and take off-site and take to a landfill. And that was what we provided for them, a plan to define what we would do if we encounter any of the materials that have been put there in the past.
And one final question, and this is for you, Representative Farina.
Don't ask I'll give up my time. Giving up my time.
I'll ask it anyway. This is a hard one, and I apologize if you're offended, but have you accepted any type of campaign contributions in reference to this project?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Do you expect any?
Well, in 2014, May of 2014, there were contributions that came into your campaign from the Carpenters Legislative Political Committee. One check was for $7,250. There were other
That's
checks.
faulty.
That was the federal government's website.
$500 contribution from the Carpenters Union. And Dave Bowman from Action 16 has already investigated this.
Okay, well, if that was amended, then I stand corrected. Thank you. Jerry? Rogers? Jerry Rogers. Everybody know Jerry Rogers? Craig? Shower?
How's it going, everybody? I'm going to be directed to the point. I want to ask Evergy, what chemicals and specifics are in the water running from your power plant into Sunnyside Creek into the Lackawanna River? What is in that water?
So, as I indicated before, there's an application in with the state that talks about what we're going to be doing to discharge into Grass Island Creek. Included in that is the list of chemicals which the state actually publishes of things that can be used by power plants that are doing things like descaling and biocides. The specific chemicals haven't been defined until they give limits and they define what it is the conditions of the permit will be, which then you can design the actual process of what you're going to do for treatment as well as what you use in the water for purposes of descaling and making sure that no biosolids build up on the cooling towers.
But again, not to ask the same question twice, specifically, what are the chemicals? Like, what's the name, spell it for me, what's the name of the chemicals?
I can't, because it's a very long list of chemicals that are available.
Give us the biggest ones.
What's the worst one?
Give us one.
Look, there's common chemicals. You can go on DEP's website. You can say, look up what it is that they're allowed to use.
You're an expert. You're supposed to answer these.
I'm not gonna throw chemicals out there until it's defined as to what exactly is required of us by the DEP.
So then the answer is I don't know. So that's the answer. You don't know.
Right now, I don't know. You're correct.
Okay, thanks.
Until I get more information from the department.
Okay, with that, I'd like to direct my next question to Mr. Charlesworth. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 32 years old. I'm a lifelong resident of Jessup. I lived at my address my whole life. I have been fishing that trophy trout stream since I was about 9 years old. January was a little slow. This past January, I fished it probably close to 20 or 25 times. How is a trout expert and a member of the organization we're with possibly condoning letting power plant water run down Sunnyside Creek into the middle of arguably the best pristine trout waters, arguably in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and New Jersey? I don't understand that as one trout enthusiast to another.
Craig, it's because of those two gentlemen that we have the best trophy trout waters in the state.
I'm not arguing, I'm just asking. I'm not understanding how you're letting, like, I don't, he can't answer what's in the creek, but you're saying it's okay.
No, what I'm saying
He can't give me the affirmative answer. He can't give me, there's probably chemicals that I can't even pronounce, and he's right on that. I need to know what they do. It might sound petty, power plant aside, jobs aside, I live there. I love that stretch of river. I'm arguably one of the best trout fishermen on that river, in that stretch. All right? You can't guarantee me anything about that river going in there. And another thing too, you're saying about this temperature with the trout. What do those trout feed on in the wintertime? Because it's a fly fishing river. You won't let a child who is 10 years old go down there and use live bait, because it's trophy trout waters. So you can't use live bait in the river. But you're going to let a company dump unknown chemicals that they can't even answer into that water? I don't understand that.
Well, gee, I'd like an opportunity to answer.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, we've had meetings with DEP also. You think Trout Unlimited is a friend of DEP? Ask Mrs. Connolly what she thinks of Trout Unlimited. We're probably her biggest nemesis. We're on DEP's back all the time. What we're depending on is the science involved. When DEP dictates what they're allowed to discharge into the river that will maintain safe levels of the water quality, DEP is not going to permit them to discharge water. I don't know if you know anything about Class A wild trout streams.
I know a little bit about it.
All right, Trout A, Class A wild brown trout streams, they receive special protection. Industry cannot discharge anything into that river that would be harmful. The issue that we ran into with the American Rock Salt facility, it was just outside of our wild brown trout area. So they were allowed to discharge into the river. The Class A designation also has to do with the water quality. The water by DEP is either listed as high quality or exceptional value. We don't have exceptional value water here, but we do have high quality water. And we've done macroinvertebrate studies, which we will do before and after Invenergy's in there. Macroinvertebrates are what the trout feed on during the winter. They feed on nymphal shucks. They feed on aquatic insect life. And that's 90% of a trout's diet is aquatic insect life. And aquatic insects spend 10 years living underwater, float to the top, mate, and die within 48 hours. So the majority of the time they're underwater. We will do those macroinvertebrate studies as baseline studies, and then we will keep making macroinvertebrate studies twice a year to make sure that that water is not affecting. The agreement we have further downriver is if they go and above what the DEP has recommended, we're monitoring. DEP guaranteed us within 24 hours they'll shut down the river. Shut down the discharge.
48 hours?
Okay, that's it? Okay.
Oh, that was, yeah.